All right, we're recording now.
All right.
Bloomquist, thank you for joining us in our law class today. I'm gonna have a bunch of questions from everybody. We'll try to get through as many as we can. They're basically in a few different categories. I'd say there's general lawyer info,
Yeah,
public defender questions,
I like those.
questions about your legal career, and then mock trial tips. Because
Ooh, my
yeah,
favorite.
we
That's
have our
my
mock
favorite.
trial coming up in a couple weeks. There's also a few random questions that people sprinkled in there that I'll hit you with. But all right. So the first question comes from Emron from fourth period. He wants to know, like, when did you know that you want to be a lawyer?
Oh, I did not know when I was a young person, really. But something happened to my family when I was a teenager that really changed my life. My father was charged with a crime. He was convicted and incarcerated. And I experienced what 5 million other American children have experienced, which is living in a home with a parent who's in the prison system. And that was really shocking and traumatizing. And I say all this recognizing that I experienced it as a white person from the middle class at the time. And so all the privileges that would have made that road easier for me, and it was still so stinking hard that I can't imagine how much harder it is for my colleagues and friends and neighbors of color whose families have gone through this too. And I didn't know that meant I was going to be a lawyer, but I knew it meant that I was going to somehow be involved in this system that seemed really oppressive, and I needed to stop it. And then I got to college and I tried different things, and I left college even for a couple of years. I did not go straight through. And I had an advisor who really cared about what I cared about and said, there's this law school. It's a little bit different than every other law school. You might want to check it out. It might suit you. And really what I did was I decided to go to that school. It wasn't really that I decided to go to any law school. I really fell in love with Northeastern Law School. It was a totally different kind of place. There are no grades. Your teachers write narrative evaluations about you, which, is good and bad. You could be really smart, but if you don't pay attention, that makes its way into the evaluation. But you could maybe be really not great at like tests or not great at your first try out of the gate of whatever, but you work really hard and you get better, and that makes it in your evaluation. And believe me, now as someone who hires people, I care way more about that.
Yeah, I'm in favor of getting rid of grades altogether in high school too, but
You're here. You're here. I agree with
yeah.
you completely.
All right. Wait, and I should have asked you, wait, the students in this class know that you are a public defender and that you've done that for a while and that you also trained public defenders. And that's basically all they know. So is there anything else that you would just want to introduce yourself before we move on with these questions?
My name is Allie, and I invite all of my clients and colleagues to call me that if they feel comfortable doing so. I got into this work because my family's impacted by the system. I care a lot about working with people who've been through that experience because I don't think that their voices are paid attention to as much as they should. Personally, I'm like a middle-aged white lady who works in nonprofit and has 3 kids and is sort of just trying to keep fighting to free people from prison. If I'm honest, that's really my number one goal, is to try to get everybody out of prison because they're awful. And I really like people. I'm a people person. I would not recommend at least public defense. You could do all kinds of different things as a lawyer, but I would not recommend what I do if you don't like people. That's kind of a fundamental part of my job.
All right. Good answer. All right. So Nebu from third period wants to know, like, how hard is it to become a lawyer? You talked about your law school that you went to. Like, how long does it take? Like, how do you even do it?
It is, I'm not going to pretend it isn't hard because of all the things in society and all the hoops that we've added to just like, I don't know, be elitists and white supremacists and all the things that make it hard to just accomplish anything in America. So I'm not going to pretend, right? There are tests you have to take. But more and more schools like care, don't care. And that's where I benefited because I was a really non-traditional student. And so Northeastern was a really great place for me. And it's not the only gem out there doing this work. So I think having an interesting story and being willing to share your personal experiences, because those are the things that are gonna, I think, be the most attractive to your colleagues. They're gonna make you the best lawyer because, you know, the more we're able to share our diverse experiences, the better the work is collectively. So I think that schools more and more care about that. I also think don't spend a lot of money getting a law degree. It doesn't really matter where you go to school. Truly, if you care and you work hard, you're going to have professors at that institution who are going to write amazing letters for you. If you care and you work hard, you're going to get an internship somewhere and they're going to see how great you are. So I would say spend as little cash as you possibly can getting a law degree from someplace reputable. But really, once you do that,
Yeah, don't
the
go to
bar,
Mr. Nesson's law school. Go somewhere that is accredited people. All right, go ahead.
yes, accredited. But there are some really amazing, you know, the whole ranking and all this crap that I think so many lawyers like get hung up on.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to buy into that. There is something about that that's a farce. So is it hard work? Yeah, you have to be dedicated. I think to really be successful at anything, you have to be dedicated. And so if you don't love it, oh my gosh, don't do it because you'll never be able to put in the dedication. But if you love it, sometimes the work is easy because you love it so much and you want to do it more. And if that's the case, then there will be a path for you to become a lawyer.
All right. And but this, just to follow up, the nuts and bolts are like you have to go to college for 4 years, and then you go to law school
Sometimes,
usually, and then you go to law school for like 3 years after that, and
yep. And then you
then
take a test,
you have to take the bar exam, the big
but
test.
not always.
Right.
Like
There are
there are
some
several
exceptions.
places in this country where you don't have to take a bar if you go to the school in that state. Or so you're right, the nuts and bolts, I don't mean to minimize the nuts and bolts. You have to get a college degree of some kind. That doesn't necessarily take 4 years. Sometimes it takes more, sometimes it takes less. You have to then attend an accredited law school. That almost always takes 3 years. And then you have to get admitted to the bar, which often includes a test, but not always.
All right. All right. Rigson in third period wants to know, what advice do you have? Maybe you've already given this for someone who's interested in becoming a lawyer. What should they do now, let's say in high school, that would prepare them for that future?
I mean, gosh, don't you think, Mr. Nesson, that
Yeah.
we place too much emphasis on specializing in something when we're kids, when really the trick is, you know, figure out what you enjoy and really dig into that and excel at that, and then go to school doing that, and then go to law school. Like you could go to law school from a music program. You could go to law school from a physical education Bachelor of Science program. You can go to law school with any of those things. I did not appreciate that. I could have been a musician. I wish I had gone to music school, but I was like, no, how will I go to law school? Turns out you can do both. So, you know, my advice is go to community college for 2 years because that is cheap. And that would then allow you to do something for 2 years that's, you know, maybe less cheap, and then go to law school. Like all the things that we were told, that I was definitely told that matter, are going to matter less and less. What really matters is that you work hard. And it's hard to work hard when you don't love something or there are lots of other kinds of obstacles that are in the way. So find awesome people like Mr. Nesson to help get rid of the obstacles and dig down into the thing that you love and sell that, and you'll be fine.
All right. All right. No, that's good advice. Don't do anything, Rigson. Just live your life and you'll become a lawyer if you want to.
Exactly.
All right.
If you want to be a lawyer, be an awesome lawyer who has like a college degree in like cooking, because that is what you care about. And then why do you want to be a lawyer? I don't know, maybe because you want to represent cooks doing a thing, or like lawyers could be lawyers in any field that is remotely interesting to you. There are entertainment lawyers and sports lawyers and politically active lawyers and litigator lawyers and rich, high paying corporate lawyers. Boo. But I mean, go you if that's what you want.
No, and science. There's a lot of people who are like science and then they become patent lawyers and
Patent lawyers, oh, talk about money. If you
yeah,
like science and law, patent law.
yeah. All right. These are pretty similar. Jimmy and Jennifer, both in third period, asked, do you ever get scared when working on a case, or do you ever get nervous from being on a trial? Like, what does that feel like?
Yes, for sure. I get scared because the kind of work that I do is usually representing someone and trying to keep them from going to jail. And because I have some sense, having never actually been there to stay, of what jail is like, that is so stressful to me that I get nervous because if I make mistakes or if I mess up, maybe this person goes to jail. So I have to work hard on like, how do I do public speaking without letting that overtake me? And I have to work on, sometimes that involves trying to learn new deep breathing techniques. I literally learned, I listened to a TED talk that talked about power poses and how they change your brain chemistry and make you feel strong. And so before trial, I am not even joking, I do a power pose, and some of them are like you stand and you take up as much space as you can, right? Like animals would in the wild if they were being fierce. And I just stand there, and apparently you do this for a minute. I do it in the bathroom, don't get me wrong. For a minute, it like grounds you in a way, and it's true, it really helps. I deploy all these things because for sure I get nervous. I think the important thing is to not think that getting nervous means that you're not good at something or that you can't do it, but really it means you care. And if you care, then you can master that into a superpower.
Oh my God, we are all doing power poses before the mock trial. I'm ready. All right, perfect.
Here's another one, the Wonder Woman. You can't see me, but it's legs spread, arms on your hips. You know, this one. It's another one that's called Starfish.
Starfish, Wonder Woman. I'm writing that down. All right. All right, we're gonna get those going. All right. All right. That concludes our general lawyer info section. We are now gonna ask the random questions that have been asked. So Carter didn't even know that you have this music background, but he asked, what's your favorite genre of music?
I love this. So my favorite genre of music, I mean, I'm not sure this is a genre. I love covers. I love covers. I love listening to someone else interpret something that I've heard so that I can learn new ways, different ways of hearing what they've done. So like, I love really good DJs who mix songs in ways that I'm like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that was like actually a ballad and you like tucked it in there and had this beautiful melodic line. Like, I love that. I even love like to the other, maybe extreme, like bluegrass versions of like rock songs, right? Where someone just like flips,
oh my God, I love that.
Yeah, flips the genre completely, right?
Yeah.
I love Outkast, and there is a Hey Ya that this band Avriel and the Sequoias do. Now it's white guys covering, you know, a black men's song, and I feel a little complicated about that, but nevertheless, his voice is super cool, and it's just like a really cool rendition.
All right, we're gonna pause the video right now to play the song.
I have one more. Carolina Chocolate Drops. I am going to recommend that one. That is a remake of a song from our generation, Mr. Nesson.
What?
And it's really cool bluegrass, really awesome. Black woman led little a cappella band, sometimes not always, but they're amazing. So that's
Carolina Chocolate Drops. Got it. All right, the other random question. Audrey, third period, wanted to know, do you have any pets?
I do. I have a dog. His name is Cooper. He's 10. He's a silver lab. He's a total mush. I love everything about him.
All right. All right. Now back to business. A lot of people ask this question because we learned a little bit about public defenders in general and some of the defenders face. And so Anthony in third period, Malith in fourth period, a lot of other people ask, like, how much do public defenders actually make? Because we keep hearing that they don't earn a lot.
They don't. I mean, if you compare any public defender in the country compared to a private lawyer, they're probably making half what a private lawyer makes on a good day. Because you go into private practice, you could be making $200,000 a year right out of the gate. Now, public interest lawyers, no. When I started, which really wasn't even the boonies ago, but for a really long time then after, I was still only, I mean, I think now a lot of places, you're still looking at like $50,000 a year. What? How do you do that with a graduate degree loans and all the crap that comes with, trying to get to law school?
You can say crap here.
Okay, good. I am really working hard at censoring myself appropriately here, so.
It's not necessary. All right. Camila for third period anticipated your answer and was like, why did you become a public defender if you could be making so much more money? And honestly, like I'm filling in his question, like you could still be helping people get out of prison as a private lawyer. Nobody's making you be a prosecutor, but like, why a public defender?
Yeah. Well, I am a public defender because 80% of the people, to much more than that, but at least 80% of all the people who are caught up in the criminal legal system in this country are people who are living at or below the poverty line. They are poor people. We are criminalizing poverty. Yes, I could represent the 15 to 20% of the people who are committing crimes and making money and causing shenanigans and aren't in that population. But largely, those aren't the people that society has oppressed for 250 years. And I'm just significantly less empathetic. And certainly that's not why I got into the work. And I didn't get into the work to make money. Now, I left a low-paying public defender agency in Massachusetts to come to a high-paying public defender agency in Connecticut, where you make an absolutely respectable wage. It's not bajillions of dollars. You're not going to be rich, but it is a really respectable, totally livable wage. And it's not the only place. There are places like that. And if I can do that and help free the people, that feels just like too good. And I love my job, and I don't want to, to me, I'm happiest when I make enough money to enjoy myself, but I really get to do something I love.
All right. That's how I feel about teaching. So we're good. All right. Itemba and some other people asked, because we learned about the overloaded caseloads and everything. Like, how many cases do most public defenders have in a year, for example?
That's such a hard question. There's no way I could even give you really a number, because you could have 1,000 cases that are trespassing, and you could have 50 cases that are murders, and both of those dockets, one of those dockets would kill you, and it sounds like it's not very much, and the other would be a breeze because it's not that big of a deal. So there's so many things that go into caseloads. The numbers don't mean anything. I think if you're interested in going into public defense, what matters is if you get to work in a place that has caseload caps. That's the magic word. I don't know what the best number is. There are lots of places where that varies because your clients are all really close together. Whereas maybe in Kentucky and they're all spread apart, you need fewer because you can't see them all and help them all. So I think the numbers change. What you want is caseload caps. Caseload caps means that the place you're working for has thought about, how do I actually do my job well enough to serve my clients and not have any more clients than that. And there are places that do that. That's the thing to look for.
All right, that makes sense. Sean in fourth period wanted to know, so why do you think public defenders are so underfunded? What's your perspective on this?
Because in this country, it is, two reasons. One, capitalism. I'm just going to say it. This is the disadvantage of living at the margins economically, as a result of systems that we have established to keep us there. That is a huge part of it. I think the other part of it is, I just think we live in a place that doesn't value, I don't know. We pay lip service to the fact that we're not perfect. We're just not perfect. And everybody wants to be the finger pointer and never have the finger pointed at them. And all of that stuff that we haven't really processed makes it really easy to hate on people who make mistakes and are caught, by the way, because lots of people make the same mistake and aren't caught.
Yeah.
So I just, I don't think people see it as a respectable job, but the reality is that's not true. We are the true freedom fighters. We are the people who are pushing against a government that is not taking care of its people and then wonder why they're put in positions that bring them into contact with the criminal legal system.
Yeah.
So we need more fighters. So if any of you are remotely interested in being a fighter, take my email, give me a call. I will find internships for you, whatever I can do to like sway you.
All right. I'm going to suggest also that like politicians don't hire public defenders, and they don't, their kids get in trouble. They don't get public defenders. Like the people who are actually making decisions about funding public defenders are not using public defenders. So
100%. Absolutely. Absolutely.
all right. I think you've answered sort of whether it's stressful to be a public defender. That was Mark's question. I think we talked about that. All right. We talked about some of the hard things. Like Amy wants to know, like, what's your favorite thing about being a public defender? Or Alejandra said, like, what are the most rewarding aspects of being a public defender?
My most favorite part of being a public defender was on days that I used to go in for arraignments. And arraignments, you may know, but if you don't, are the very sort of first appearance in the court. And it's where the court is going to make some decisions about whether you're going to get to go home to your family while you await trial, or whether you're going to be held on a financial bail or some other kind of situation. Those days where I got to be with people who were frightened like heck, because they were in this situation, maybe for the first time, but often it doesn't matter. It's so traumatizing and triggering. And to stand with them and just say, like, I can't possibly imagine what you're going through, but I really want to help you. And so who can I call? What can I do? And then having the chance to do that and seeing them walk out to their family. That is by far the best. Winning trial, great. Winning motions, great. But seeing someone walk out of custody to their family is like the most beautiful thing. And when people are out waiting for trial, they have a way better chance of staying out, no matter what the outcome of the case is.
That's awesome. All right. Manila, I'm going to kind of massage Manila's question, but so like, do you ever feel like it's frustrating or like you're not making enough of a difference because you're only can do like one client at a time, and it's like it's so methodical? He's like, have you ever thought about like doing like a broad scale thing, like those lawyers who like will sue a whole town or something and like try and make big change instead of one person at a time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. That is why I now work in criminal legal reform for a giant nonprofit instead of in court.
Right.
Because I wanted to move into a space where I was maybe doing more like systemic, bigger impact stuff. But interestingly, and not surprisingly, I miss the one client at a time work because it's just as frustrating to try to move massive things. It's just as hard. There are just as many people who want to say no and push you down. And when I'm helping one client at a time, I am meeting a human, and I'm meeting the people who love that human and their children and their mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters and partners. And those connections are amazing. And like, no matter what happens, seeing those families, connecting with those families, like I have maintained relationships with so many of the people that I have had the honor of working with and trying to sort of navigate through these really oppressive systems. That makes the losses so much more tolerable. And I don't see the daily impact of my work in the big class action, high impact strategic litigation.
That makes sense to me. All right. So, all right. So now we've been talking sort of generally about, your feelings about the frustrations with the system and good things about the system. But Jasmine in third period and a bunch of other people asked this, and Jude asked a similar question, fourth period, like, how does it feel when you're representing a person who's clearly guilty, who has maybe been accused of a horrible crime? Like, is that difficult to do? What does that make you feel?
That is the number one question I get from every single person who ever finds out I'm a public defender. And I guess usually what I do is ask them a question back. I say, what if I told you the story about someone who saved someone's life, took a risk put themselves in danger and saved another human being, would they be a good person? Yes. A hero even? Yes. If after they did that, they harmed people, they stole from people, they lied to people, they cheated to people, they hurt people, would they still be a good person? Most people pause at that because one amazing deed does not make you amazing forever if your life is peppered with a bunch of crap that hurt people. So to me, it is nothing to do with whether the person I'm standing next to did a thing that they're accused of, even a horrible thing. It's about not seeing them only as that one thing. Because I've also represented murderers who've been convicted and sent to prison, who are now mentors, professors in these institutions, helping young men, especially who have, come in on all kinds of way lower level crimes, see opportunities for education in a place that's really traumatizing. They've built lives for themselves and mentored people and been real heroes in the community that they're in. And they did all that in prison, which is not like, helpful. It's not like encouraging people to be good, really. So to me, it doesn't matter. That's not the point. The point is standing for the proposition that someone is more than the worst thing they did. They are the totality of their humanness, and they deserve an opportunity to show us something else.
Okay, but I'm just gonna push back for a second because like there are some really horrible people out there who've done like lots of bad things.
Have
Like,
you met them?
I don't
Have
know.
you met them?
I don't hang out where you hang out.
But this is the thing. Let me just say, I have met these people, and when you sit with people, you realize they are way more than one thing. They are complicated people who are loved by other humans because other humans see their complexity. And, people can do really bad things and be really broken and still be human beings capable of all kinds of things. I push back that we should ever consider something just one thing.
Okay. Camila wants to know, like, and this is kind of along these same lines, are you ever allowed to not work for, like, do public defenders have to take whatever comes in the door, or are they able to say, this one's not for me?
Ethically, I can't represent someone who would cause me to not be able to do my job well. So if someone came in the door and for whatever reason, doesn't matter what the reason is, if it meant that I couldn't be objective, I couldn't do good work, I couldn't do what I needed to do, that would be an ethical problem. I have duties to my client under the rules, under my license. That would mean I shouldn't take that case, or I should withdraw because I can no longer be an effective advocate. So the answer technically is yes, you can turn a client down. And also, I do think it's hard, and because you get to meet people and you do get to see what I see, it becomes hard to do that because almost every time you read a police report, because I'm also going to say 99.9% of the thousands of people I've represented in my life are not those people you're talking about. They're just not. They're loving people in tragic circumstances. It doesn't mean they didn't do a thing, but there's like so much backstory, and that matters. So yeah, I don't know.
All right. This is the last question in the public defender section, but I mean, there's a more kind of related. So Haiti, I don't know, she anticipated, she didn't even know, I didn't tell her that you have children, but she said, do any of your children, would your children want to become public defenders? And what would you think about that?
So my oldest is a mock trial student in high school, and I'm a sort of coach emeritus in this district, and I love that work. He's super talented and gifted. And I tell him all the time, do whatever you want to do, bro. Would I love it if he went into something if public defense, because that made him happy? Oh my gosh, yes. But I care more about, I think we're all public defenders. I mean, I think this term is really about however we exist in the world. Our job is to sort of make it better and help each other and stand up against things that we know aren't right. And so you could be a public defender hairdresser and a public defender musician and a public defender teacher. And we're all, if we're living in that way, that's really what I care about. So yeah, I hope he does become a public defender of some kind.
All right. Now I have a couple random questions. So Toda wants to know, what is your favorite food?
Macaroni and cheese and fried chicken are my favorite foods on the planet.
Hmm.
I want to invent some kind of like sandwich that is fried chicken bread with mac and cheese filling and like really good hot sauce. That would make my day. But don't tell people that, because that also is not very healthy, I think, and I feel like people would judge me.
You just told like 50 students, and this is going to be up on YouTube, so people are going to see it.
Every day, every year for my birthday, that is what I get. Some version of that.
Well, I will tell you that period 4 will be very happy with your response. They love chicken in period 4. If you had said chicken and rice, that would have been your perfect answer.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Okay. Also amazing.
Okay.
Also amazing.
All right. I don't know why he would ask this after hearing this whole thing about how public defenders don't make any money, but Baraka in 3rd period asked you if he could borrow $5. So no, you got anything to say with that? No, not gonna happen, buddy.
Do something good with it, buddy. Maybe make a pitch for why you need it. I will invest.
He's gonna spend it on cake pops that he buys from DJ. So don't give it to him. All right. Anyway, all right. So the next section is kind of like a legal career war stories kind of section.
Okay.
So like Azucena from 3rd period asked, like, what is the craziest case that you ever worked on? You got anything like that?
Well, I mean, what's crazy? Most of my cases are super, super, super tragic. I work on like those kinds of cases, but craziest case. Yes, here's a crazy case. My client, who unfortunately struggled with substance use and sort of managing a really, really tough life with things that didn't always make him in the best space to make good choices, got caught up with somebody else who convinced him to go and rob the like convenience store that they frequent all the time, by the way. So like not wise. And he goes in and he does it, and it's on surveillance, but the clerk happens to be some like fill-in temp clerk that they randomly got, who has never ever interacted with my client. But it is on surveillance video, so that's like a bummer. And then as he's leaving, the police are in the parking lot and they follow him out. He drives all the way into the forest, and his friend who's with him doing this gets out of the car and runs off. The driver gets out of the car and runs off, and the police, all of them, chase that person into the forest. And my client really can't believe that just happened, that like every single police officer on scene went into the forest, but they did. So he got out and was like, oh, and he left and went back home. And the only reason that he got picked up was literally just because he was kind of known for having this situation. And the car that he was in is a car that he had been seen in before. But when the police came, the surveillance video was like the wrong time frame. So the person they captured looked like totally the different person, and they didn't ever catch him on the scene. So we got the case dismissed.
Oh, all right. You know what? That actually probably answers DJ's case. Would you consider that? He asked whether you've ever had a case where you're able to get the client free through a loophole. And I don't know exactly what that means. Exclusionary rule doesn't really count as a loophole, but I don't know.
Now, my favorite quote here is, I used to have a sweatshirt that said, "The Constitution is not a technicality or a loophole. Right. It's a real thing." Yeah. No, and this is a client who clearly did the thing. And again, I am not advocating for going in and robbing places. Bad things happen. Not a great choice. But I do feel frustrated that this young man had been traumatized in so many ways by the system, had been in the child protective services system, had parents who had so many challenges to raising him. So many times he was not treated the way he was supposed to be treated. But then he makes this choice, and instead of looking back at all that, we just want to get mad at him. That's what I want to push against.
Yeah. All right, we have some questions. So this is kind of along the same line. So Badir wants to know whether you've defended murder suspects, and Elvis wanted to know what the worst crimes that you've defended are.
I have a murder case right now. I defend someone who's charged with murder right now, a client who I've had for many years, and I really, really love, and I really don't believe he committed this crime. So this is going to be challenging. the worst, I mean, the worst crimes, I have defended the worst crimes you could probably imagine, so I don't really feel like talking about those are appropriate.
Mhm.
I work in the superior, I predominantly, my career was in superior court where I took on only the most serious felonies. So, really nasty things that like aren't good war stories because they're horrible all around. But I've also had a handful of cases where we have really won. We've had, wrongly accused people and we've vindicated them. And that's just also super, super, super amazing.
So why don't you tell us, because Oliver asked like your favorite case. So why don't you tell us a good story about getting somebody who was innocent, getting someone innocent free? You have a good story like that? Yeah.
One of my favorite cases was I represented an individual who was not, had many, many delays that made it so he was always in special schools. He really wasn't able to complete schools. He had cognitive challenges that made him, so he didn't really write. He couldn't read. And he liked to confess to crimes because that made him seem really cool. And I had him on a case where they believed him. They used him basically as a scapegoat on this. And it was so hard to prove that he wasn't guilty because he had said this to so many people and talked about so many things. And he had a police scanner. So like he knew some things that had been put out on the police scanner. And so he had details about it. And we dug and dug and dug and dug and dug. And we worked with this client for a really long time. And I knew him well. And finally, out of the blue, he said that I was visiting him in prison, and because he was held pretrial. And he said, gosh, I wish that I were out because on Tuesdays I have my, oh my gosh, what is that game everybody plays now? Pickleball. I have my pickleball club. And, I have to go do that. And I was like, you do pickleball? And he was like, no, I check out the, paddles and balls, and I check in the teams for the tournaments. And so like I work there. It's my job. It's a volunteer gig, but it's his job. Turns out they kept records of when people were there. And he was working at the pickleball court at the time this crime happened and could never have done it. And he didn't remember that. He, in all the years, like maybe 18 months I represented him, he hadn't remembered that that's where he was that day, because like that doesn't make sense to him. But he knew finally that like Wednesdays he was doing this thing at pickleball, and we got these records and we brought them in, and the judge dismissed the case outright.
That is awesome. That's awesome. All right. What do we got next? A couple of people, people watch TV, and so there were like 4 different people referenced the show Better Call Saul. Do you watch that show? Do you think it's realistic? Do you ever have to go to your clients' houses like Better Call Saul does and whatever, just to check on them?
So nothing about Better Call Saul is realistic when it comes to how you behave as a lawyer and what kinds of things happen around all that, right? It's super dramatized. It's great. My oldest, who's also in mock trial, loves it. But I do go to my clients' houses, and I really do. Not every public defender does this, but I absolutely am sort of involved in their lives. It makes it easier for me to do my job because it feels like I'm less intrusive. They understand that I really care and I'm there to like learn about them. So in that way, yes, I'm pretty connected. And I have had many clients tell me things like I have been in situations like Saul and had to navigate those with my clients and help advise them through something so that I didn't have to go, do bad things. Because that happens when you build relationships with families. And a lot of the clients I represented, because of intergenerational poverty, I represented a lot of people in a family, and I knew them well, and I knew what was happening sometimes and like how to help negotiate that.
Well, so that actually, you talked about going to your client's house and things like that. And I think that kind of goes towards Luis's question about like, you describe these very close relationships with your clients, but like, is it difficult? He asked, what are your experiences like being with clients who I'd imagine have very different lives from you, have had very different experiences. Like, how are you able to forge these kinds of relationships with them?
Honestly, doing therapy, my own personal therapy. Therapy is really, I personally think you go to the gym, you see your doctor every year, and you see your therapist. Those how you stay healthy as a human being in this world that is trying really hard to beat us down. Doing that kind of interpersonal work helps me see people and meet them where they're at doing interpersonal work. Now, I'm not a therapist, but I have been in the experience of sort of receiving that kind of energy and receiving support. And so I try to translate that. Also, don't get me wrong. I'm going to say like maybe 5 to 10% of my clients do I forge these like really close bonds with, because I have a lot of clients and a lot of them cases move quickly and they have different needs. And so sometimes they're just really, really challenging. And even though I love them, they're like, keep the away from me. But that happens too. It's just that the ones that are so great, they so overshadow everything else that it makes it really wonderful. And it buttresses you through those other things. Like I don't always have the answer. I don't always have a perfect relationship, but I'm really respectful and I really listen. And fundamentally, I believe I work for these people and my job is to just do what they want within the bounds of the law.
All right. So that finishes our legal career question. We'll do a couple randoms and then we're going to our mock trial tips. So the 2 random questions here. So Rob wanted to know, how many hours of sleep do you get per night? Other people are asking about your like work-life balance because we know public defenders are so overworked.
Yeah, sleep really matters to me. So again, I was really mindful of working in places that had caseload caps. I wanted work-life balance. That's serious. More and more young people, I was not trained in this, but I had young people now who like know to ask for this and are really pushing for these standards. So I think you have to like demand it because otherwise they wouldn't give it to you, right? In some places. But I sleep a lot. I also have a really great partner who's also a lawyer and does this kind of work. And so we kind of get each other and can support. And when my spouse is on trial, I know I'm the one picking up all the slack so that they can get rest and do all the things, right? So, yeah.
All right. This wasn't even a question. Riley just said, Carter, stop looking at my paper, please. I don't know what that means. All right. All right. Mock trial tips. So Juan wanted to know, because he's making the opening statement in his mock trial.
Most important part of the case. Go.
All right, tell us. What's the tip? What should he do?
So the opening statement is your first chance to put out your theory. Theory. You have to have a theory. What's your theory? Why should your client win? Why should someone actually care from the heart about why your client should win? And how do you condense that into like a pithy little phrase, right? That has to come out right away in opening. And then the other reason opening is so amazing is that technically you can't argue in opening. You can't make conclusions, right? You're just supposed to talk about the facts, which makes it seem like you're being very objective. But if you put the facts in a really particular order, they cast certain impressions. And I love it. It's such a powerful way to tell your story, to put out the facts that really help your case right away.
All right. So pretend you're being objective to fool people into thinking that's what you're doing. All right.
Exactly. And
all right.
Theory.
All right. Theory of the case.
Yeah.
We talked about theory of the case. All right. Elias and Misael they're both doing direct examinations. They wanted to know about asking the right questions or asking what not to ask. Or not asking certain questions. Well, you have any advice for them?
Yeah, my advice is have your witness write out the story you write out the story that you want your witness to tell. As a story, not as questions, just as a story. And then you know all the things you have to ask. And you just figure out how to pepper questions in that are going to give your witness the opportunity to tell their story.
So just like, what happened next? Then, it's like that.
What happened next? But if you know the story, then it doesn't have to just be what happened next. Like if you're telling the story of the 3 bears, you can say, once you find out that Little Red Riding or that Goldilocks was out in the woods.
You don't know the story of the 3 bears that well.
So you're out in the woods, and what happens next? What are you thinking in that moment? And then she gets to tell more about that. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So now you're inside this house. What do you see inside this house? You become just the narrator who's like bringing the dialogue through each part of the story that matters. And it's way easier for a witness to think about telling a story than answering questions.
Got it. All right. Now, Selena is doing a cross exam in our mock trial, right? So she wants to know, are there any tricks to get the person to spill answers?
Yes, there's one trick.
Yeah.
There are 3 rules to cross, and if you do this, they will say what you want them to say. You ask only leading questions. That means you're really giving statements.
Mm-hmm.
You only ask about 1 new fact per question.
Okay.
And you source all of your facts. So if you have sources in all your material, and the source could be their statement that you received in the case file, the source could be common sense. Like, for example, the lights on the police car, the police car had lights. Yes, everybody knows that. The source is common sense. No one's going to be like, no, that marked police car didn't have lights, right? Or it's your statement. And if you do that, then they can't not give you the answer, because if they don't give you the answer, then you go to the source and you get to impeach them and call them a big fat liar. The problem is sometimes we want to ask them things that aren't in our case file. We want them to admit things that we can't prove. That's where we get into trouble. We can't ask those questions. We can only ask questions that we can prove, either by impeaching them with the case file or rolling our eyes at the fact finder like, really? You're going to believe that the lights were purple when they're really red and blue? I mean, you don't say those things, but that's the impeachment in that moment.
Got it. Stick to the facts.
Stick to the facts.
One fact per.
Leading questions, 1 new fact per question. Yep. Sourced.
All right, perfect. All right, Selena, you're ready. Okay. I mean, we don't have our mock trial for 2 weeks, so I don't know why Kankadon's already asking this, but she says, what do you do when you feel like you haven't prepared enough for the case?
I prepare a lot, and I feel like that every single time I go in court, because that's my nervousness talking to me and telling me, you know, there's more you could have done. And there always is. Like, there always is. If you had another week, you could find some new clever way of doing it. So I guess I say work hard. It's my mantra, but also don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Just be as amazing as you can be in the moment. It doesn't have to be perfect, and you will be sufficiently prepared.
All right. And then I just thought this was funny that both of the two people in period 3, Madison is our defendant, and in period 4, Dana is our defendant, and they both asked questions like, if I'm charged with a crime, what's the best way to get out of it? I don't know. Do you have any advice for the witness in this scenario?
Oh, you mean once they're testifying?
Like, yeah, like how should they? Well, I mean, I guess first, how do you get out of the crime in the first place? I'm sure
this is a real life, in the real world, unlike in mock trial, a criminal defendant doesn't have to testify, right? So in the real world, the way you get out of trial is do not talk to the police. They don't want to help you. They are not your friend. They are not trying to make it easy on you. They are not trying to get you a better deal. In fact, everything they say is the opposite of what they're trying to do. And so do not talk to them. I have won many cases where people talked to the police, but it's the hardest, most uphill battle. It's terrible. Don't talk to them. If you don't talk to them, you will go a long way to helping yourself, or any defendant in any case, advising your clients in this case, because they usually can't prove anything. Like, police aren't really that smart, and labs make mistakes all the time. And most of the time, they're only able to do this because people talk.
All right. That is great advice. All right. We're done with that mock trial part. One more question, which is a random from Sarah. That I don't know. We're going to end on this because it's very deep and philosophical. I don't know. If you could go back in time, what one thing would you change about your life? I don't know why.
I know exactly the answer to that.
All right.
I could go back in time. The one thing I would change about my life is that I would go to the conservatory for music that I got into instead of going to a traditional college, and then continue to be a lawyer and be where I am now, but I would be doing it as also a singer. So
that's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming in. I think everybody's going to really enjoy this interview, and I'll let you know.
Good luck. Fight the man. Be public defenders. Woo!
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye, Mr. Nesson.
Bye-bye.